You stole my heart of gold after my silver soul. Can you dig any deeper now? I gave you all I own, put you on this golden throne, but I'm a little stronger now. You cashed in on my promises, you know I'm too generous. Now I've learned to never help you out, 'cause I'm done cleaning up your mess. Found myself in my regrets. I've become a little stronger now, a little stronger now. You cashed in on my promises, you know I'm too generous. Now I've learned to never help you out, 'cause I'm done cleaning up your mess. Found myself in my
Hello and welcome to you, lovely viewers. Thank you for joining me. My name is George Smith, and I'm here to bring you the RaceFace Season 2 action here at Kyalami. And this time, I've got a special guest lined up again. We were joined by Ryan Gill for a couple of seasons. And this time round, I can introduce my co-commentator, which is Stephen Koenig. Stephen, thank you so much for joining me, brother.
No, thank you very much for having me, and super excited to join for the RaceFace, especially around Kyalami, right here in South Africa. As you can see, sunny day out, and I think we're going to have some fantastic racing for everyone to see.
You're absolutely right. Our home circuit, something to look forward to. If our chat could just give us a little audio check, let us know if you can hear us loud and clear. We need to know if we need to dial down some of the game audio or if you can hear my co-caster. So, Stephen, you're experienced here at Kyalami in real life. I'm experienced here in the sim. It should be an awesome combination of voices for our viewers, and I'm excited. I heard that we have a similar voice tone, so it might be difficult to distinguish us. I've added a more manly filter to my voice, as the viewers can most definitely probably not notice.
Well, I think if I tighten up my belt a little bit, I can start sounding a little bit like a girl, and then that would be a good differentiator. Yeah, I mean, the sim racing is a bit different to real life racing, as we could see. Couple of cars are still trying to get to it. Charles Wilkin, being an actual race driver, does find it a little bit difficult in the sim, but still manages to put in some fantastic time. So he's using it as a great training tool for going into real life racing. And I think this is where it's going to be rather interesting to see whether the race drivers can actually take on the sim drivers. We know that the sim drivers can go from the sim into the race seat quite easily, but it seems to be a bit more difficult going the other way around.
Yeah, that was something that we talked about a little bit earlier. I'm just double checking the audio again on my side. I might be a little bit louder here. I'll dull myself down just to make sure that I am coming out both channels. Or is it a little bit better now? Just let me know. I'm hoping that we aren't going to have teething issues the entire time. I've had to change up the sound setup due to that we've had some weird faulty sound glitches. I think I've ironed things down to an element in my setup that might be causing it. But yeah, just let us know if that's all sorted out. Okay, Sean, my co-teammate in White Rabbit, has confirmed that the sound is perfect, so that's all good. Stephen, hopefully you're still good and I haven't buggered up your levels. I mean, we chatted so much off air. I wish we'd kind of captured all of it. You were telling me that, you know, I was kind of bragging about Kyalami's accuracy, and you were telling me that they didn't simulate the tree that you used for the breaking points here at the top of Leocorp that Jason's going through. So tell us a little bit more about your experience in sort of racing, commentary, real life driving, that kind of thing.
Okay, well, starting off with Kyalami, I've driven two versions of it. One was the previous version before the track that we see now. They've actually made it a hell of a lot quicker in this version. When it's originally Kyalami got put on auction, everyone thought this is the end of Kyalami. I'm sure everyone saw the newspapers saying that this is going to be the end of Kyalami, legendary race circuit that's been around so long, going to be carved up and hacked into a factory. And actually, Toby Fenter from Porsche went and bought the circuit and went and put it to FIA spec, which, I mean, is absolutely stunning. And still managing to still capture the essence of what Kyalami was. Way back in the 80s, where Kyalami actually had one of the longest straights in South Africa to gain a lot of speed. So glad to see that's going around. I gotta say, my favorite part of the circuit, and that's always been my favorite part of the circuit, is the S's. One, I have spun off enough times in it to know the amount of dirt that's lying there. Two, it's a very technical part of the circuit. It can catch you out quite quickly. You can go too wide through there, but you're going to run into the marbles on both the inside and the outside line if you're not careful. There's something to be aware of. And also, as you go down Mineshaft towards Crocodile, previously known as the Bowl, that's also another one, because Mineshaft has a slight little left-hander that can catch you out. And some of the cars, even in the real racing cars, guys actually tend to go a little bit off on Mineshaft, losing a bit of speed and going straight into the Crocodile. You can outbrake yourself and start venturing off into the wall there. So it's pretty interesting to see how much they've actually gotten this. I am a little bit perturbed though, because if you head up to Leocorp, just as you go over the crest, there's a tree on your right hand side in real life. Go take a look. It's right there next to the actual barrier. This tree has been there for donkey's years. And in the game, they've just added trees everywhere. But if you go on board, you could just see, as they head up, at this 50-meter board, just over the crest, there's meant to be one single, I'm not sure if it's an oak tree, but it's one massive tree that you get taught. You see it, you hit the brakes, you sling it in, and that's how it goes. So, but they've done a fantastic job with this, and we're glad to see the sim races going around and showing off the South African colors. Now, I mean, we've actually had a lot of sim racers going and doing international sim racing and doing incredibly well. I mean, we just came off doing a 12-hour around Silverstone where some of the South African drivers went into it and had a ton of fun. I mean, Patterson was in that along with Arno Versace. They both teamed up into racing this, and we're taking on guys from the UK, Germany, America, and even taking on Dave Perel's very own ACC team.
Yeah, it's incredible to see our drivers represented out in the international circuits as well as doing great things here in the local leagues. Arno Versace here currently qualified or sits in 4th position. Up in front of him, he's got Morgan Mccall, who sits in 3rd. Second place belongs to Charles Wilkin, and Jason Absmeyer leads away with 140.590, holding down pole position for now. So we got 3 minutes and 30 seconds left to quali. This is where it's time to make it count. If you were just sandbagging in practice in the early stages of qualifying, it was a 30-minute qualifying session for the guys to get used to the conditions. It's time now to really show the guys what you're made of. And currently we see George Veed is 2 tenths up on his current lap time, which will possibly jump him up into 4th place if he continues with this pace. He has lost another 10th coming down through the mine shaft, coming into Crocodiles now. Will he make or break? He's still up a 10th. He needs to find a little bit more if he wants to find 4th, but a 10th up from here could find him 5th position with only 2 minutes and 40 seconds left. He's up 2 tenths now as he comes down through Ingwe. Now it's just the final dash to the line for him. He gets a good run off the exit of Ingwe. He could hold this 2 tenths gap. He is going to jump himself up to 4th place and take that position off of Arno Versace, and that shuffles the order down. Arno jumps down to 5th, Krayling down to 6th, Patterson in 7th, Strauss in 8th, Masters in 9th, and Kadile in 10th place at the moment. That rounds up our top 10 for the current qualifying standings. What do you make of these kind of times? I mean, 140 is coming out from Jason Absmeyer, 140.5. Then we've got a 140.803 coming out from Charles Wilkin. So he's just 2 tenths off the pace of Jason's qualifying time. What do you have to say about this, Stephen?
I think it's going to be very close racing between the top 8 cars. They've literally under a second of one another. So it's anyone's game there. You can be sure Absmeyer is going to be very, very cautious going into turn 1. It is a long race, but he cannot back off because you can bet Charles Wilkin, Mccall, Wide, and Versace will be right up it, chasing him down, and even Krayling from Retro Sim Racing. Whoa, and it looks like Absmeyer getting a little bit tail happy, and that seems to put him out of that qualifying practice. But
a couple of drivers, Stephen, seeming to feel the pressure in the last couple of minutes. As I jump through the order trying to find a car to follow around, we seem to have found a couple of guys just playing around in the kitty litter. Krayling, though, from Retro Sim Slipstream is here, and he is currently starting another fly. He's got another lap to get in here, and let's see where he manages to get himself on that starting grid. Currently in 6th place, so he's got some time to find. I mean, he's literally just 200ths away from Versace, and it's a fight between teammates there for 5th and 6th. Kieran Patterson doing great as well. He's still within the top 10. He can find himself, he's going to be able to get another lap in here. He's coming into Ingwe with 30 seconds left of qualifying. So if you manage to start your lap before that timer ticks all the way down, you're obviously enabled to go and get another lap out.
And that's where the pressure comes in. You might score that extra lap to go around, but that's one lap that you've just got to find a 10th of a second to try and move you up through the grid as you jump on Patterson. And really absolutely clean driving, but it seems going into from Crocodiles to Cheetah, he gets a little bit wide every time. So let's see if he can maybe correct that as he starts pushing his way through Barbecue, heading towards Sunset. Going to dab the brakes a little bit here and just try and give it as much as he can, heading into Clubhouse. Now, the physics of the game, it must be rather tricky for going and trying to put in these times and going with such a deviation in the circuit. Like from Sunset to Clubhouse, you've got quite a, how can I say, the track is at a slight angle, and they've done it very nicely into the game. But how is it in the Porsche? Because you're a big fan of the Porsches, you drive the Porsches in multiple series. How do you find it, especially since they can't touch the curb as much as, say, the Bentley or even Cadley in that AMG?
Stephen, you've already won my heart over letting me talk about Porsches so early on in a broadcast as we watch Kieran Patterson's beautifully themed Kieran Patterson Works racing team. I think his dad, Alan, designs these cars. So I love the custom liveries that these guys do. They do break my replay functionality a little bit. So these Porsches, a handful, but they are beastly around the track. As you can see, our top 5 cars are Porsches. Then we got that Audi coming in. The Audi also brilliant car here. So Versace has got himself into a great car to start things off. Kieran Patterson is not going to better himself. He's going to go and start in 9th. Our top 10 we can actually run through at the moment. And we can actually run through all the way to 24th at the moment. So first place will be Jason Absmeyer. Then we got Charles Wilkin, Morgan McCall, Keegan Masters, George Veed, Arno Versace, Bruno Kedili in 7th, 8th place for Johannes Kraling, 9th for Kieran Patterson, and 10th place for Corné Strauss. I just want to quickly toggle back over to my normal relay view there, okay? Then we got Brandon Kruger starting on 11th place here, Mark Ansel in 12th, Junior McCall in 13th, Victor de Kock in 14th, Francis Vogel in 15th, 16th for Dion Cap, 17th for Daniel Rowe, or Bernard King, which one of the, it's Bernard King. Paul Gabe in 18th, Johan Bago Hrobler in 19th, Amrish Sienorain in 20th, 21st for Sean Buck, Neil Berger in 22nd, 23rd for Noah Hendricks, 24th for Sebastian Janssen. That's all the views that you guys can see, but we still got more cars for you. Batis Hugo starts in 25th, Marco Pirelli in 26th, Arno van Mansberg in 27th, Heinrich Hatting in 28th, and 29th, I believe, would be Jason Isherwood, who I'm not sure if he's starting in the pits or if he's starting at the back of the grid, but I am getting a weird indication that he's not quite the same as all the other drivers on the grid.
No, he's been really working hard on that car, but I don't see him in the pits, and I don't see him at the back of the grid from the view. But we'll see as he gets through. He's got a lot of work to do to try and climb up, but the Bentley seems to be quite comfortable around the circuit. But the Porsche is leading the top 5. This is going to be incredibly interesting, considering the top 8 are within half a second of each other. Just think of that, half a second. Going into turn 1 and turn 2, these guys are going to give it their absolute all for an hour and 25 minutes. And this is going to be one incredible race. And as you brought up, the livery designs is absolutely amazing. Charles Wilkin going and really showing what he can do in that second spot. But his plan is to go after Absmeyer and make sure that he can take that top spot. Absmeyer is one to keep an eye out for. He really knows how to keep the car on the circuit. McCall as well, as they head on to their pace lap, just to get a bit of heat into the tires, warm up those brakes, get the butterflies in the stomach. And I mean, George, you've been around in the sim racing scene for a while. We're going into this lap, this single lap where it tells you single file, what goes through the driver's heads?
I mean, it's a multiple difference of things. I mean, you've obviously loaded up your race setup now. You've set your fuel that you want to run with. There is a mandatory stop here with a tire change requirement for drivers. I'll be able to just pull that little overlay up. There we go. We can see it. That little indicator, that little orange number next to their names, just shows that they have to do a mandatory stop. When it goes green, it means they've completed their stop. The outlap is all about just taking it easy. I know a lot of drivers let nerves get to them and spin it out in some of the AM series and things like that. Here in our Pro series, we don't really see too much of that happening, but I have seen some nerves getting to some guys. They bin it on the formation lap and try and make their way back to where they want to start. If they can get back up there, that's okay. Otherwise, they start from further back down. It's going to be an interesting start for me because obviously Jason qualified up in first place. Full disclosure, Jason is a teammate of mine for White Rabbit Gaming. So I'm going to be super stoked with him starting up in pole position. But that run down to Crowthorne in T2 really does favor that inside line. And if Charles Wilkin gets a belter of a start, it really is going to be up to Jason to try and defend. And that maybe opens things up to Mccall from ATK into allowing himself to get involved with that battle early on. We do have to mention as well, Stephen, that there are drivers driving around with a bit of ballast. So you can see down there, Paul Gabbe in 18th place with 50 kilos. He won last week. And then, of course, second place going to Patterson last week. That means that he carries 40 kilos. He starts in 9th place. 30 kilos to Versace in 6th. 20 kilos onto Antal in 12th. And then 10 kilos for Bago Krable in 19th. So a lot of ballast for the guys to carry around. It is a heavy car. And all of these things are being, sort of tested out and revised for the future. But I don't want to talk any further. They are about to line up 2 by 2 as far as our eyes could see, as my co-caster from RCI would say, or one of them, at least, Jesse Lee. We see them lining up 2 by 2 coming through Crocodile on their way to Cheetah. Stephen, are you ready for what is about to go down?
I have got goosebumps already. I am not lying. This is awesome and lovely to see the pink Porsche lurking around, and this is going to be a ton of fun. But now this is where it comes in. The game backs you down to 70 k's an hour, and you got to try and stick with it. The butterflies are going through these guys' stomach. You're literally lined up, and soon as you get that green, it's going to be race on. And let's see if Absmeyer will be able to hold that first place going into turn 1 and turn 2, or will Wilkin pull a fantastic start and make his way through. And the race is on.
It is on. Green lights are go, and it's a good start for Jason Absmeyer. Charles Wilkin not quite where he wants to be into T2 of Crowthorne, but he's going to have a look on the inside. Not quite available to him as we watch this action go through. Let's see if we can follow. Oh, Morgan Mccall starting from the back of the pits there. So it was not Mccall starting as we thought. It was Keegan Masters starting in third. He's going to go side by side with George Veed. It looks like he's going to force George Veed quite wide, and that's allowed. That's going to be Bruno Kadili in that AMG alongside before they come into Sunset. On the outside, it looks like Kadili going to get the move done before they come into Clubhouse, setting himself up for the inside line. Veed going to have to tuck behind, but a very clean start coming out from all our drivers. It looks like we've still got most of our cars still in the running. We couldn't obviously have all eyes on track, but just cars as far as the eye can see. They're going too wide, Stephen. You mentioned this before. This is the kind of racing we want to see.
Side-by-side action, and you can be sure Veed is now kicking himself because he just got an alert saying he's got a drive-through penalty as well. So that's going to push him further down the grid, and that's going to open up for Kadili. But take a look at Patterson, really doing everything he can, trying to fight against Kruger, and he is battling his way around. It's going to be a little bit hard on the brakes. He tries to dive up with the inside. Very risky. Whoa, we got one of the Audis going very wide. Remember, as you said, you can outbrake yourself quite easily going into the Crocodiles there.
Patterson is going to get it done. He is going to get past Kruger in that Lexus. So Patterson being brave, getting moves done. Veed going to jump into the pits. We see the grey Porsche pulling in to serve his drive-through penalty that he got awarded on the start. He obviously jumped his grid position, but a great little jump maneuver there from Patterson. He's jumped up from 9th to 7th with cars having to go into the pit and that move that he's pulled. So carrying that ballast around, Patterson going to want to Kruger in the background. He's going side by side with Antal, de Kock there, Cap as well, Vogel. There's just names as far as we can really see, and I just can't believe that these guys are still pushing it to the limits. They've got an hour and 25 minutes here to race, and you would think that this is the start of a sprint race. Guys are pushing it, getting the track position that they want to do, and we can see Jason Absmeyer up at the top of our totem pole as we track around with Kruger. We get to talk about that lovely red and white Lexus livery, which is unique in ACC, right, Stephen? You were talking about it. They don't have a lot of liveries to choose from standard, and Kruger here has gone and created something that is just, it looks like it should be in the game.
No, it's absolutely stunning. Glad to see it. But as he breaks away, you can see Antal is having a bit of a battle there with de Kock, and he's losing a bit of ground on it. Cap going on the outside, trying to make his way through. And
Vogel just snuck his way on the inside there at the top of Leerkorp. Cap going wide, thinking that he was going to get not going to have Vogel looking so eagerly so soon after the S's. And Vogel in that Aston Martin, I mean, they match in terms of colors, but Vogel just slides on by, now begins the chase down onto De Kock. And De Kock, of course, in one of the Porsches. We mentioned the Porsches here, but we have to mention Aston Martins as well. They are brilliant endurance cars at Kyalami. And in terms of, stability and something that isn't trying to murder you whilst giving you decent performance, that's the Aston Martin in a nutshell right here. So going to be interested to see how Vogel does. We're going to have to monitor their tires, of course. It's 36 degrees out on track. So pushing at these sort of paces for an hour and 20 minutes is going to be ultra interesting. They've got a free tire change that they have to do. So you want to see the guys driving the absolute rubber off of these tires.
No, that's absolutely. And take a look at Cap getting into the slipstream of Vogel. Is hoping to get pulled along. Maybe we'll make a move through the S's. But Vogel is getting closer to the Porsches in front of him. Oh, Cap going a little bit wide there, losing a lot of time. Sure, he's not happy about that in the McLaren, but is trying everything he can. But if you just take a look at the absolute battle going on here, Fasaki, you're having a bit of trouble from his own teammate on the Retro Sim Racing mods. Kraling really pushing hard. Patterson now starting to climb onto the back of him as well. But Arno Fasaki seems to be battling with the Audi a little bit and is trying everything he can to just get every little bit of momentum out. But Patterson is where he wants to be, in the slipstream, getting pulled along. And you can be sure that Kraling is chomping at the bit to try and get past Fasaki, because it looks like Fasaki is holding him up just a little bit on the straight line. So it looks like that Lambo is a bit more dialed in for long straights, not really through the corners. But Patterson is really pestering, trying to look for his way around. Kruger in the background trying to catch up to Patterson as well. And Ansel still looking for a kink in the armor to try and make their way up. It's absolutely amazing. Close racing, as I said, door-to-door action, and it's going to be fun.
So Cap has lost out again. We saw him running wide, obviously, at Clubhouse, and I think that's allowed Amrish Shinnerin to get himself into a much better position. He's obviously got that Bentley up the order. He's now in 11th place. Cap is now going to be under attack from Gaber and Strauss behind. This is the danger of losing positions to drivers. Gaber with the big drift coming out of Barbecue manages to hold it in the Porsche. Not something that's easy to do when the rear engine of the weight transfer comes around. Very difficult to keep it going around, and definitely harder to not lose a position after doing so. So Strauss is going to notice this. He's going to notice that Gaber is going to be experiencing rather hot rear tires if he keeps on doing that, and he's going to be looking for his opportunity to slide on by. And it gives us opportunity to once again talk about one of the favorite things that I like to talk about, which is liveries. Regardless of whether it's in a local South African stream or an international stream, here we're allowed to run custom liveries. So we can see Enrox, or Corne Strauss as he's known in real life, not by his gamer tag. He drives for a team called EKZ Motorsport, run by Richard Herring, and this is their EKZ Audi. And I do just like the subtleness of it. It's a small little detail, just a couple of EKZ logos, and black and red looks good. Runs wide coming out of Crocodile. Got to be careful not to gain track advantage and pick up those drive-throughs. Lots of running wide from Sienerin as well as Gaber there, and that's allowed Strauss to get an easy position on Paul Gaber. Sienerin making mistakes. Mccall, that's going to be Junior Mccall coming through the ranks. And it's so great to see these brothers back again and driving from ATK. I did mention to you, Stephen, they were hit by the coronavirus, both Junior and his brother Morgan, as well as their dad. It was just not a nice time. They weren't involved in the league racing, and of course that doesn't come as a priority during those times. But great to see them back up and running and back out here and racing again.
Well, Mccall is definitely making a name for himself in the league racing scene, and Cap, unfortunately, seems to be struggling. As now King is bitten onto the back of him and wants to move around. But Mccall is one to keep an eye out for. He's keeping a cool head. He's keeping a little bit of a distance, watching the fight between Gaber and Strauss, and is just trying to plan his way through. Cap getting very aggressive, goes on the outside, does go a bit wide. Mccall looking to try and fight back, going into the S's, has to give up that position. but Cap is being incredibly aggressive.
Oh,
with the car.
he's made a mistake through the S's. You see how slow he is coming up to Leeuwkop. Look at the run from McCall's white Porsche. He's going to try on the outside of Leeuwkop, but he might lose out to King in that Lexus in doing so. So McCall's going to have to go defensive. Cap is under fire from McCall, and they come down to Mineshaft now. Soon it's going to be slamming on the anchors. Who's going to break first? And it's going to be King looking to go on the inside. McCall has lost out big time. King slots on by. The Lexus pulls the move on the Porsche, who was looking to make the move on the McLaren. An absolute brilliant bit of driving coming out from King, reading that like an open book.
And if you take a look a little bit ahead, Strauss under some serious pressure in that Audi. But Jim goes, these guys are really giving it their all. And they haven't even been racing for such a long time. But you could swear that this is a final lap race right now. Kerber doing everything he can. Takes a look on the inside to try and see if he can work around Strauss. But unfortunately, Strauss is making sure he shuts those doors as tight as possible and putting a padlock on it to make sure Herber can't get round. But Cap is starting to make up a little bit of ground as well. He has to get refocused. I'm sure he's a little bit frustrated what's happened. But you can see Herbert in the slipstream trying to get the toe with that Audi and try to get slingshot. But while he's doing that, the Bentley is running away from them. The more they start fighting with each other, the more they're actually falling behind the rest of the group. And you can be sure that is not what they want to do. What they need to do is knuckle down, work with each other. Until going flying off the circuit there.
Yeah, from 9th position, he's going to bleed down. He's in 15th at the moment, but that's going to cost him even more than that because Bago Krobl is in 18th. So this will be 19th place for Antel as he comes back up to Leeuwkop. So losing it through the S's, a big loss for Antel, but that's going to promote drivers ahead. Brandon Kruger now, like we said, just driving his game at the moment and just doing what he needs to do. He's now up into 8th. Patterson doing exactly the same thing, carrying around that ballast in his Porsche, sitting in 7th place, and that's no easy feat from the Porsche driver there. But if we look at our timing sheet, it's just battles on battles. Kadili up to 4th place. He's got past Versace, who's carrying some ballast in his Audi. Keegan Masters up in 3rd place. He's kind of got himself a little bit of open air to Charles Wilkin and to Jason Absmeyer, but it's not a lot. I mean, you still see them in shots. Yeah, it's a couple of car lengths, if that. And then Bruno is going to be mounting the attack onto Keegan Masters here. So Keegan Masters trying to give Charles Wilkin a run for his money. Charles Wilkin trying to catch up to Absmeyer, but nobody running away from the order in these opening minutes of the race and leaving things nice and tight with an hour and 13 minutes left to racing.
Yeah, no, it's going to be an interesting one, and you got to be careful not to tucker yourself out. I mean, these drivers are really pushing it to the absolute limits. And you might think just because they're sitting behind a sim seat, grabbing hold of a steering wheel that's not even moving, not handling G-forces, you won't get tired. But the amount of concentration these guys have, just because they have to, what for the drivers in real life, we can feel the car moving, we can feel the car shifting around underneath us, but the sim racers to another level have to just work on the subtle feels coming through the steering and what they can see on the circuit. And even some of the drivers also relying on the headphones that they've got to realize when they're actually catching onto the curves of the circuit. So then using audio, visual, and a feel to try and get this right. And I gotta say, it's absolutely incredible. You can see Versace really pushing hard, Kraling really doing everything he can. His teammate right behind him in that Lamborghini, trying to push him along, trying to egg him along, get into the toe, and they are teaming up to go against Cudley. But Cudley is doing an incredible job with that front engine Mercedes, who seems to be right up there, right where the mid engines are. He's the only front engine in the top 6 cars, and he is really showing what he can do in that beautiful White Rabbit Gaming AMG.
I mean, I can't call my own team cars beautiful, but I can most certainly PayPal you to do so. So Stephen, your $15 is on the way. Bruno doing a fantastic job there in 4th place. Versace and Kraling, the teammate battle is definitely unfurling in front of our eyes. Kraling wants to get past Versace. Versace carrying that ballast, so of course Kraling will know that his Lamborghini might have the edge here on Visagie. Visagie, of course, an ultra-talented driver that I've seen just grow and evolve. Obviously, joining up with Retro Sim is awesome to see. Jason Isherwood and that lot. Jason is someone that is just a great name in the community as well. You know, there's just guys that are out there that are trying to do things for the love of it and forming up teams. Tsebo Moloto, of course, from KK Racing, one of the other guys that I want to mention. He's obviously got Dian Cap, who was doing brilliantly at the start. He's dropped down to 12th at the moment. But, you know, it's all these teams. ATK, of course, also a big name to mention. They've got a league that they run, but obviously they've got their talented drivers. They picked up Junior Morgan Mccall, which was, you know, awesome to see. Those were two drivers just waiting to be snapped up by some sort of organization. You know, it's just across the board. There's, you know, interesting stories that develop and evolve every single day.
No, it's absolutely, and it's glad to see it. But take a look, Visagie going wide though, and it looks like gave Freyling a bit of a chance there. McCall really trying to make his way through. Berger getting chased by Herbert, and you can just see how hard he's actually working. Beautiful livery with purple. It's a standout car, I've got to say. But to take a look at King, sitting back as well, waiting for his opportunity. Antle trying to make his way through. Buck still trying to get onto the heels of everyone. But it's absolutely amazing. Herbert really doing everything he can. Gets into the toe of Berger. McCall right there as well. And you can see one mistake can cost these guys positions right down through the field. So they've got to be so careful of what they do. And they have to get every braking marker perfect. Krobler in that Mercedes going wide, but trying to carry as much momentum through the corners as possible. And you can be sure that Mercedes is a bit of a handful as he makes his way around the circuit. Jumping on board with McCall though, and take a look how close the dice is behind him.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to mention it's just a beautiful sight to see. It's just cars battling with cars, and this is the battle down for 14th, 15th, and 16th. You know, it's not even the front pack, and there's guys putting in the close type of racing that we want to see. You know, just out of shot, we saw Corne Strauss and of course Bernard King. They're also within a couple of tenths of one another. So I'm just waiting for Berger on Gerber action to come out. This is pushing my Afrikaans limits. I think it's Gerber and Berger. I don't know. Is it? Are you good at Afrikaans, Stephen?
No, not
Okay,
at all.
so
I'm not even going to pretend.
Okay, so together we will we'll struggle. We can say Leeuwkop. It's about the length of our Afrikaans abilities, and I'm glad because I was hoping that King is slow coming out of here. I don't know what has happened to King. Bernard King has made a mistake. He's come out very slow out of I believe that was Crowthorne and the Yusuke sweep. He was right on the back of Strauss, which has now enabled McCall, Berger, Gerber, and Bego Krobler to maybe try and challenge this Lexus. And that's where you don't want to be. You don't want to have cars pressuring you. You want to be battling and pressuring cars in front and not potentially losing out. Cap running a little bit right. Strauss touching the dirt too. So everybody pushing these cars to the edge of the limits. But it still will be McCall to hold off that little pack. Strauss is looking fast. I need to go to Strauss. Strauss looks like him and Cap are having a very much look at one another. Strauss seems to have found some good braking points. Cap struggling a little bit in his McLaren. Like I said to you, Stephen, the McLaren, kind of a disappointing car for me in ACC. It looks like it should give a lot more than it does. It kind of feels a bit bland. It looks like it delivers that Batman experience, but it doesn't.
It's kind of a show car, actually. Beautiful to look at, but not one that you want to just jump into and go for a drive. But, I mean, there's a couple of things that I've just got to ask. I mean, coming into the sim racing thing, we've got an hour and 7 minutes of the race left. And I know people are going to be questioning, you know, Abschmeier, is he using a direct drive, a 40,000 Rand steering wheel setup? And a lot of people tend to think that getting into sim racing is rather expensive, especially into this caliber of sim racing that we're seeing here. But I think, can you give us a little bit of info of what guys generally run?
I mean, it's how long is a piece of string? And you know, it's twice as long if you double it. You know, it can be any infinite amount that you want to spend. You can go super entry level. Logitech G29s are obviously going to be the sort of go-to entry level wheels for guys to get into, but I mean, it can go to all levels. And just talking about guys pushing it to the limits, we see Jason Absmar, Charles Wilkin, and Keegan Masters are front three runners within 4/10 of one another from first to third, and this is just incredible to see. With an hour left of racing, we get to come and focus back on our leaders. Jason doing a phenomenal job here to lead the race. It's a hard job to pass people and use them to gauge where you can go faster, but then finding a way to try and get away and stay in front for the longest time possible up until that checkered flag is always going to be difficult. And of course, the pit strategies are going to come into play. So I saw that Snow actually sent us a question in our chat asking about pit strategies and what guys are going to do. You know, they've got a mandatory tire swap, so guys will be doing tires, and at the same time you can throw in fuel without losing time during that 30 seconds. So to me, you're probably running your cars a little bit lighter and then gonna do your pit stop, do your tire change, throw in some fuel till the very end. It really depends on what's going on. You know, Keegan Masters here may be struggling in terms of trying to get past Charles Wilkin. He could have the option of going in for the undercut. Wilkin can do the same thing on Absmeyer, but you know, maybe it's Masters' is game to gamble here and take that early pit stop, try and undercut Charles Wilkin. If Masters is being held up by Wilkin, if he gets out, he just hopes for that clean air. It's such a gambling game.
I mean, they are literally nose to tail, those two, as they battle their way around. And Absmeyer is loving it. He's starting to actually pull a little bit of a gap between the two, while Masters and Wilkin are messing each other up through the corners. And they've got to really knuckle down there. But you can see Masters and Wilkin back into real racing. They actually got a bit of a history together and racing against one another very competitively. And nice to see it carrying out into sim racing where these two are really battling out here. But Absmeyer, absolutely clean air, having a ball of fun. And he's got to really work on just focusing, hitting those apexes, getting those X out of the corners just right, and marching his way up. Because he knows the battle behind him is going to keep on ensuing until one of them eventually fall off or pull into the pits. Now, with this bit of a battle with the Porsches, I know a lot of people say that the front tires start to go off around the circuit. When do you think is going to be the best time, now that the pit window is open for these cars to go in? When do you think is the best time to get in the pits, get that change of tires, put that last bit of fuel, and race it up to the end?
I mean, you've only kind of used this current set of tires for 25 minutes, so you've lost a little bit of grip on them, of course, but you still kind of got another 25 minutes at least of grip before they really start to fall off. So I guess within the next sort of 20-ish minutes is where you're looking to, if you've been pushing your car, if you've been kind of saving your tires, you'd probably just go for the sort of mid-range pit stop, so halfway mark, which a lot of the guys seem to do. It's it really comes down to if you're being held up, if you're trying to make your way through the order. If we go look down towards like someone like Bernard King perhaps, who's been struggling, he's losing pace. Look at all these cars in this shot. Any of these guys could jump themselves into the pits earlier, get themselves out of this intense battle and get themselves a bit of clean air.
Well, you can be sure Mccall is under a bit of stress here. Taking a look at his rearview mirror as King is marching up on that Porsche and making dead sure that his bright red car is firmly in the sights of Mccall. And that's where the pressure comes in, down into the line shaft. And let's see, going into Crocodile, it's going to be a bit of a difficult one. Mccall has to hit the brakes just a little bit later. Take a look at Strauss, though, really doing everything he can, going right up into the back of King, taking a big risk there. And Berger also having a bit of a time trying to go as defensive as possible, as he's got a bit of a battle right behind him as well. I mean, this is incredibly close racing for this RaceFace. I mean, it's absolutely amazing how hard these guys are pushing it. And they're really doing everything possible. Arno Fasaki, but notice Arno Fasaki has actually fallen a bit back because Kraling is sitting in 4th place. So what happened to Arno might have just lost it, hooked on the dirt and lost that little bit of time. But Kruger more than happy to take the position up and is marching his way through to Patterson, and Kraling trying to keep Cadley at the back, and that's going to be very difficult.
Well, I mean, Kadili is the one that seems to have lost out as well. Bruno was obviously in front of Arno. Arno's dropped down, and Kadili's also dropped down, and Kraling seems to have benefited out of either one of those two. Making a mistake, running wide, not sure, didn't see it on our side. Of course, we can't capture everything. We are a 2-man band, and we can't see absolutely everything. If you are wanting to get involved in doing some more broadcasting with us and want to be a designated camera replay person, and that's all you want to do, then hit me up. I would be keen to see what we can make work in these kind of broadcasts, and we can have a designated camera guy sending us a replay, a stream or something like that. I'm not promising, but it's something that if we do have some availability of guys that want to do it, let's give it a go. So of course George Veed here was the man that jumped the start and was served that drive-through penalty at the very start and had to drive into the pits on lap 2. So he's down in 19th place, hanging on to the back of Noah Hendricks from Amped to Play. Another sim racing community that has got quite a few drivers that have kind of made their names in sim racing and started to make their way up through the order. So interesting to see that Veed is still in this and still trying to fight back. Dian Cap, he's dropped way down, the McLaren driver from KK Racing, unfortunately not having the best time, down in 20th place at the moment. So Stephen, not the best race for Cap. I want to take 1 second before I hand over to you just to thank our beautiful viewers and everybody in the chat. I believe that there are some audio gremlins, which again I've spent the last week and a half trying to diagnose, and I'm sorry about that. I've got one last resource to change. It's a little bit costly on my end, but hopefully we'll get rid of whatever. I don't even hear it. I don't think my co-casters hear it on my side. It's something that seems to be on the encoding side going through to the stream. So it's super weird. I'm hoping to resolve it. Stephen, are you enjoying your night shirt so far?
Absolutely loving it, and seeing not only the fantastic racing on the circuit, but also seeing how much chats are coming from our viewers that are watching this live at home, and it's absolutely amazing. So a big thank you. But what I'm also seeing is a lot of team efforts are being put in as Strauss goes and takes a big look on Mccall on the inside, trying to push him wide. Close racing, door-to-door action. Mccall able to get a little bit more of a drive out. Strauss getting back into the toe through the cheetah, and now is doing everything possible. You can believe Mccall is stressing himself out here big time. Strauss getting a better drive, bro.
What a run, Stephen. That exit to Engwe just looked like he lunged himself back into the slip from Mccall. And Mccall now is going to hold that inside line defensively. That's going to allow Strauss to set him up for the perfect run down through, which is going to allow him to carry some speed through the Uxke sweep. Berger, though, is there to pounce if Enrox makes a mistake in doing this. But looking towards Barbecue, it does look like this Audi has something on that Porsche from Mccall. Side by side, they exit Barbecue on their way to Sunset. Enrox from AKZ up against Morgan McCall, that's Junior McCall from ATK. Oh, not done yet on the inside. McCall tries to send it back, but it looks like Strauss on the outside of Sunset. Now on the inside of Clubhouse, side by side they stay. McCall runs wide to the S's. It's going to be the inside line for Strauss, giving each other room once again. Strauss going to get the work done, and this time around it's not going to be a great exit for McCall, and that's going to allow Berger to suddenly get the run up here as they come to the top of Leocorp. On the outside, will he get it done? A touch has come in, the contact has been made, and Berger has been spun around in that. Junior McCall, he's on the outside of the track waiting to give the position back. So good sportsmanship from McCall waiting up there. I mean, that's what it looked like to me, waiting to see, but unfortunately it took a long time for Berger to come back. McCall did try and wait there but facing the wrong direction. Rowe now wants to have a look on the inside of Crocodile. Absolutely incredible. De Kock also wants to do this on the outside, coming into Cheetah, trying to force Mccall not to, elects to tuck back behind, and that's the smart move coming out. But in phenomenal racing, it looks like De Kock being shot off on the outside there. I'm not quite sure where De Kock has ended up in the background of the shot, so he's dropped down positions.
Definitely incredibly tight racing there, literally wing mirror to wing mirror. Mccall must be kicking himself, but take a look at Berger though, really on the fight back and is trying to push back as much as possible. Now remember, Mccall and them are a little bit quicker than the grid in front of them, and they are really trying everything they can, but you can see that Porsche is carrying some battle scars of that little bit of touches that were going up there. But Berger now getting into the toe. Rowe really doing everything he can in that Ferrari, trying to push his way up. But these guys are really making sure that they can just keep going. Buck under some serious pressure from Rowe as they battle their way around the circuit, heading into the S's. Let's see, will Rowe be able to keep the momentum going there? Mccall trying to hold Berger back, and he is literally looking left and right, making sure every mirror is going to be it. But Mccall going very wide, losing a little bit of time there, and that's allowed Berger to dive up on the outside. Berger can look at doing a cutback if he's a little bit brave, but not close enough to do so. Gets into the line shaft. What he needs to do is just tuck up right into the toe, get pulled in that slipstream, and look to go for a slingshot right at the end. Guys up on the outside line. He's going to be on the marble, so. And let's see, backs out, realizes that he will not be able to make that corner. I mean, absolutely phenomenal racing going on here. What do you think of this? This is absolutely going to the max.
It really is. There's no holding back at the moment. It looks like Charles Wilkin seems to have dropped back into third place here. That's allowed Keegan Masters up into second. So we see a change up in the order here. So Keegan Masters from G4 Sim, of course, representing once again for his new team here, holding down second place with 55 minutes to go. The pit window remains open for 34 minutes, and of course these front runners have yet to go into the pits. We do see a couple of pit markers next to their driver numbers. You'll see a orange marker with a number 1. That means they have to pit. If it's green, it means they've already pitted. So that's going to throw some cars into some awkward places up until everybody's completed their mandatory stops. But for now, that front 3 order has changed. Johannes Kraling still holds on to 4th place. Bruno Kedili in 5th place. 6th place for Kieran Patterson. 7th place for Brandon Kruger. 9th place for Arno Versace. Francis Vogel in 9th. 10th place, sorry
to jump in there. Versace lost it. He's no longer in his position.
He's not.
The sausage curb and losing 2 positions while chasing after Kruger. Not what he wanted. The Retro Sim racer is really not having a fun time today.
Yeah, so he's now dropped himself into 9th. Bernard Kingman sits in 10th. Amrish Sienoren in that Bentley in 11th. 12th place for Corne Strauss. Johan Bego-Krobler in 13th, George Veed in 14th, Baptist Hugo having a great race up into 15th place, 16th place for Dion Cup. He's made up a couple of positions here as well. Noah Hendricks in 17th, it could be because of some pit stops as well. 18th for Sean Buck, 19th for Junior McCall, who's obviously dropped down the order. He lost out to Berger earlier. Finally, Berger gets back on by. I think those were the 2 that were caught up at the top of Leeuwkorp, and finally balances itself back out. McCall will yield to Berger, and now Van Mansberg is there to give some issues to McCall if he's not careful. So Van Mansberg in 21st, Victor de Kock in 22nd. That car that you see just behind Victor de Kock is Marco Pirelli. He's actually in 28th place. He's a lap down. So the next car behind is Hutting in that orange McLaren for Sylar Racing. He's in 23rd. Sebastian Janssen, I believe, has dropped out, which leaves Paul Gerber in 24th place for Team Tryhard. Of course, Morgan McCall, who started from, it felt like the pit lane at the start, has not managed to get himself back up. He would have started a lap down in doing so. So Morgan McCall, the number 888 in 25th. for ATK, 26th for Jason Isherwood. He's had a good race in terms of making up positions. He's up into 26th place, and he's completed his pit stop. So cars around him still need to go into the pits. An early pit stop strategy coming out from Isherwood might be someone to watch.
No, Isherwood has really dialed in that car and is having a ton of fun. But as we jump back to Rowe and Buck, who have been battling their way around, you take a look at Abschmeyer.
Sorry, so I'm going back to your Rowe and Buck. They're not even on track here for position at the moment. So
no,
Rowe,
they're just having fun.
What's happening. Rowe is unlapping himself, actually. So you can see he's the 27th place driver. He's just overtaken Sean Buck for 18th place on the circuit. That's not going to belong to Rowe, as he's still a lap down on the other drivers. But, for now, it's all about just trying to make your way back up through the order if you have had an incident. And with 51 minutes to go, you've still got plenty of time to make something happen. Francis Vogel on my timing sheet, he's got the pressure still on. Well, he's closing down onto Kruger, and then he's got Kaba, I believe, who's a lapped car behind him, but Versace for position just behind. So Vogel with a little bit of a buffer to Versace in that Retro Esports Audi, giving him a little bit of space, allowing him to chase down, using his Aston Martin to its full effect as he chases down Kruger in that red and white themed Zent Lexus. And Kruger's had a good race, but Vogel does look to be hitting the apexes and lines in the last couple of corners that we followed. He's closed down the gap to the back of Kruger all the way down to 0.2 of a second now. So it's really game on for the Aston Martin driver of Vogel to try and see what he can do up against the Lexus.
Mr. 007 himself has to get a little bit aggressive, take a deep breath as he tries to go on the inside of Kruger. Not close enough to do anything there, but he did take a look, hooks it on the curb. Yeah, as you can see, the Aston is far more settled on the curves. He really loves it, and he's making sure that he can hook it on the inside, try and get that drive out, but really having a ton of fun. And all I could say is he is trying to make sure that Mr. 007 can go for his next assassination, which is Kruger in that Lexus. But don't count out Arno Fasaki, the torpedo, as he makes his way up, and he is really on an absolute mission. After he lost that little bit of ground, hitting the sausage curb, he's taken a deep breath and is trying everything he can heading into the S's, and really to see how much ground he can make up against Vogel. He's gotten around Gerber, but now this is where the race is on. Vogel has to keep an eye on Kruger. He mustn't lose sight of it. As soon as he starts focusing on his rearview mirror. Now, I mean, you've been around in sim racing long enough to say, you focus on your rearview mirror, you lose track of the front, you're the first one to fall off the corner.
Yeah, you don't want to get yourself caught up in a defensive game. You want to drive your best drive and make sure that you're putting yourself in the right place. So Keegan Masters looks like he's lost out once again to Charles Wilkin off screen. As Wilkin gets on by, Masters dropped down quite a fair amount of time to Wilkin there. So obviously making himself a slight error and allowing Wilkin to regain second. This all works out for Jason Absmeyer up in first. He's given himself a 2.5 second lead now to Wilkin and Masters, which is exactly what the WRG driver needed here. Wilkin was giving him a run for his money earlier, and that was going to put him under pressure all the time. So we do see Wilkin's bright Lumo green Porsche from Sarko Esports in the background shots as Asmai comes around the exit to the S's now. So definitely needs to make sure that he keeps that foot planted and doesn't allow Wilkin to get back that advantageous position. Just behind them, I mean, Grayling has kind of had that empty space where it's no man's land. Bit of Hot Lap Simulator 2020. Holds on to fourth place. He's got Masters 6.1 seconds up the order from where he is now, which means that he's got quite a lot of work to do. But the driver behind him, next for position, would be Bruno Kedili, who is 5.3 seconds down the road. So sort of in that middle ground, and Kedili's being battled by Patterson, who is carrying his ballast around still, but continues to slay positions. Every time we get an update at this man, we see, okay, cool. Patterson's now into 6th place. So driving around with ballast and doing it with steez and looking oh so good whilst doing so. The Porsche here, a powerful car, and being capitalized by the Patterson Works driver.
Well, the thing is, he's really showing he's got that winter weight, 40 kgs on the car, and still keeping it up there. And he's really trying everything he can, battling against Kyalami. And the main thing he needs to do is just keep into that toe. Both of them haven't pitted as yet, and that's where it's going to be interesting. When it comes down to the pits, where they're going to end up, and when they choose to pit, as Patterson gets the drive out, really giving it everything he can, dives up on the inside, looks to try to go on the inside through Sunset, backs out of it. But Kyalami is really showing what he can do with that AMG. He can drive it extremely, extremely wide, and to make sure that no one can get around him, but still at such a pace that he can keep up with these mid-engine cars. And going into the S's, far more settled than the Porsches. As you can see, he just gets onto the curves, gets on the power early, and really starts pulling his way up. But he has got the disadvantage of Patterson in that toe the whole way through. And that's what's helping Patterson right here, because all he needs is hook into that toe and get Kyalami pulling him along, and that's going to be one thing to keep an eye out for. But if you take a look actually on the boards, Abschmeyer is still leading, but Krayling pushing himself into 2nd place as he hasn't pitted yet. Oh, but in turn loses it.
Yeah, so he does get himself up into 2nd place, as obviously Keegan Masters has made even further mistakes in what has been, I can only describe as a catastrophic failure on his side. Where's Charles Wilkin sitting in all of this as well? I don't even see him on my... I see him down in 17th. He's gone into the pits though, so Wilkin's gone in to do his pit stop. It will be an awkward situation then for Masters, who hasn't been into the pits, but has dropped down to 9th. Krayling now will be in 1st place.
I don't think for long, because remember, he hasn't pitted as yet. Well,
yes.
These guys have pitted. Abschmeyer pulling out of the pits in that lovely white Rabbit Gaming Porsche, who was leading. Kruger in the pits. Cap is now in the pits as well, as we just seen in the background. And this is where it starts changing up, ladies and gentlemen. It's about getting your pitting just right. And now Abschmeyer has to do one thing and one thing only. Start racing as hard as he can, because he's got 44 minutes to get that 1st place back. He's lying at 8th, so that's going to be handy.
Well, yeah, you know, it's 8, like you said. It's not now about driving hard. It's about keeping the same pace that you were keeping and not getting held up in the mid-pack after serving your pit stop, because if all things continue to go fine, if you've just served your pit, you will regain that position once everybody else goes in and slots in. So it will be up to Jason here to get a bit of clean air. Luckily slotted sort of in front of Strauss. Strauss maybe just not wanting to take that fight and have to defend against Abschmeyer. He's got his hands full of Bego Krobler from the home team of RaceFace, driving for Team Wolf. Bego Krobler having a great drive as well. I believe he's also carrying some ballast with him. Yeah, he is. 10 kilos coming in for the AMG of Bego Krobler. So battling out with a little bit of a disadvantage, but still within the top 10, and yet to serve the pit stop. So keen to see where everybody slots in after this. Johannes Krayling gets a moment to shine as our temporary race leader though, until he serves that pit stop. So Krayling, our lead car from Retro Sim Slipstream.
Really enjoying it there, I can see, but he's got to really work hard. He's got Patterson also lying in 2nd place. He hasn't pitted. Vogel as well hasn't pitted, oddly enough. And those two have been duking it out with one another. You think that you would just want to get in the pit so you could get ahead. But take a look. Krayling isn't really running away from the rest of the grid anymore. And that's going to be a problem on his part, because he actually needs to try and open up a bit of a gap to Patterson. He needs to start opening it up, try so when he pulls in the pits is not to lose up too much time. But remember, Patterson is really pushing with 40 kgs on that Porsche and is doing everything he can. So it's now down to pit strategies. Most of the guys are pitting, so let's see how that's all going to turn out. I've got a funny feeling Krayling is going to back it down to about 5th position, 5th, 6th position if he gets into the pits early enough. Otherwise, he's going to start going further down that grid. Now, I've got a quick question to ask you. How, you're getting to those 42 minutes left of the race, knowing that you have to get into the pits there. What's the mindset that's behind these drivers? What goes through the mind, especially in league racing?
I mean, it's a fair amount of racing to get done. Your pit stop strategy is like, it's either something that's super evident is going to be something that could potentially make you a position, or you're in a position of the race where you just need to serve the pit stop. You don't have to do anything funny or try and take less fuel. But Patterson here, for example, is staying out. He's getting past back markers who are moving out of his way, which is okay if he's trying to extend that pit strategy for himself. He's got 21 minutes to still drive around with, this set of tires. It is that gamble. The track has dropped in temperature now. It's just gone 20 past 4 in the afternoon, almost 4:30. Track is sitting at now 32 degrees. So we've seen 5 degrees drop off in temperature. I saw a car on the side of the track, on the side of the S's whilst talking. So I thought I'll just mention that. Not sure who it was. But yeah, the tires are going to be enjoying the cooler temperatures. And the guys here can then, establish, can I go a little bit longer with these, because I'm not going to need as much grip as it gets cooler into the later stints. So let me try and see if I can use as much as I can here, and then just drive the absolute bollocks off the car as soon as I get the opportunity to do so.
Well, take a look at Hendricks is pushing hard to try and make his way up as he's getting aggressive. Vogel having a bit of clean air as he's looking to try and chase down Kruger, who is 8.6 seconds ahead. And the nice bit about Kyalami is when you're coming down that mine shaft, you can still see the car. If they're still about 6 seconds ahead of you, you can still see them going down. So it's not just that sitting in an empty space. You know your target. You can follow your target down. Mccall taking it easy in 24th position, just circulating around, with Junior Mccall right in front of him in 23rd. But Junior Mccall has pulled in the pits, and Mccall has not as yet. So I wonder if they got a bit of a strategy there to try and do a bit of a pull each other along.
They've got an upset strategy and an upset dad right now. I'm sure Robert Mccall is in the chat at the moment. He's asking me, why is Morgs still showing in 24th? Well, Morgs is currently in 24th, Robert. It's been an unfortunate set of circumstances for the ATK drivers. I think McCall or Morgan started in having to start in the pits and be a lap down, and has had to make his way back through the order, making his way to 24th. And Junior has had a couple of collisions that have caused him to, I think it was mainly the big one was with Kaba at the top of, I believe, Lucorp, where he then had to also try and wait for some of those positions to give back, and just bled himself down the order. Has jumped into the pits though, so of course it will be interesting to see where his brother comes out, Morgan, but definitely not a good showing here so far from the two brothers at Kyalami. It's not been a great race from them, unfortunately. Where it has been great is up at the front, where Kieran Patterson had first temporarily before he dives into the pits. So this is where everything's going to change back up again. Keegan Masters is coming down. He hasn't served his pit stop yet. Jason Absmeyer is coming to resume his lead, I assume, but Masters isn't giving up that easily to it. A bit of an interesting sort of discussion point on that is, if you've still got to pit and you're holding up a driver that's gone through the pits, then the battle on track is going to be interesting. Masters is going into the pits, so Absmeyer going to come around. Patterson stays in the pits, so this should be first place again for Jason, as he drives on down at the start-finish straight. Kieran Patterson is still stationary. Masters still stationary. Charles Wilkin, though, this could be our second place coming to resume his position. He took that early pit. We saw him go in early, and here he comes on by. He gets past Patterson, and he was obviously battling with Masters earlier on for that third place. So interesting to see that Grayling is the big winner out of all of this. He's come out in third place here, as Patterson comes out in fourth, I believe. Patterson out in 4th. It is Patterson out in 4th, and Kadili out in 5th, and they're in the same shot in the same corner. So the pit strategies really tightening up the field once again.
Well, you got to also say the respect to the drivers as the Retro Sim Racing Isherwood moves right out the way, letting Patterson and Kadili just let them by. They're in their own race and is definitely having a ton of fun there. But you can see Kadili is pushing hard onto the back of Patterson, and Patterson has been in a dice start to current, and he has really been fighting. Both Kadili and him have literally been nose to tail with cars. They have not had any rest going all the way through, and you can see Patterson really working hard, heading up to Leocorp, hard on the brakes, tries to catch a late apex, but Kadili seems to have got a lot more drive heading into Leocorp, but doesn't seem to have the same exit speed as what Patterson's got there in the Porsche.
Yeah, it's an interesting sort of talking point as well, and that is Patterson's got that ballast inside it, so it's a heavier Porsche as well. So Kadili will know that Patterson is dragging some extra kilos around, wants to put pressure on, force the mistakes. Drive-throughs are things we see here for exceeding track limits. So if you can't get past the driver because of the extremely narrow and difficulty of the Kyalami circuit, you can always put pressure on and try and force an upset.
Well, this is going to be in the benefit of Crailing, because Crailing just has to try and keep his nose clean, keep that clear air, and just keep circulating in that Lamborghini. He's got a bit of a gap, 2.7 seconds, which might not seem a lot, but in racing terms, it's just enough to take a deep breath in, a deep breath out, and keep focusing. While Patterson and Kadili are literally going and trying to dive up on each other through the inside, through the outside. And let's see, will Patterson be able to carry on holding Kadili back for that period of time? Because it seems like Kadili is getting more and more of a drive out of the corners in that Merc.
Yeah, I almost feel certain that Kadili's having a bit of a difficult time knowing that he's settled in here behind Patterson. He will want to get past so that he can begin his assault on that Lamborghini ahead. But Patterson has just shown incredible talent over the weeks here. Has been a master of leading, has been a master of attacking, right now has to be a master of defending. And in doing so, it's probably accepted the fact that the car is heavier. He had a result last week that meant that he was being BOP'd for this week's round. And coming into it smart, taking it with that approach that other drivers can make mistakes. And that's exactly what's happened. I believe he's qualified in 9th position and has made his way through to 4th. And this is not 4th because he hasn't pitted. This is 4th place because he's had some great driving on track. Other drivers have made errors that have allowed him to get through, etc. It doesn't matter. If you've had a great drive yourself and benefited off those things, you can have only put yourself in the right place at the right time to have had those lucky opportunities. And that's exactly what Patterson's done. And it doesn't look like he feels too much pressure from Kadili in the first sector too much. Maybe up until they get to barbecue, you see the front end of the Merc getting a little bit closer. But Patterson doesn't seem to have phased. You sort of mentioned earlier they've been swapping positions in and out. Not really. Patterson's actually just been that defensive block in the way of Kadili being able to even have a look to the inside. And not one to send an upset either. Will make sure that is a fair chance when wanting to do so. So it will be up until that moment that Kadili can wheel in Patterson, if he can, before we start to see some action there. But down the order a little bit, Nuo Hendricks is in a battle with Bouts Hugo from Team Wolf in his Bentley. So it's Ferrari versus Bentley. Do you want to take us through a little battle here, Steve?
Well, taking a look at Hugo, really doing everything he can. Tries to take up the big look on the inside of Hendricks. Hendricks getting a little bit more momentum into the corner, managing to hold his position. But Hugo is battling. It's a battle between British and Ferrari, being in Italy. So this is turning into a bit of a rough one here. Hugo in that beautiful, beautiful purple and black vehicle. Now side by side, Nuo Hendricks losing a bit of time. Really doing everything he can, but unfortunately has the door closed on him. Now all he has to do, hook into that toe, try pull himself along, and maybe get through on the S's. and you can see how hard he's battling, but Hugo, he is one to keep an eye on. Slowly and steadily been moving his way up through the grid and is keeping it nice and consistent lap after lap. But he has to have his sights firmly set as Krobler goes off into the dirt, moving up through a position. Now Veed is next on the list, and he has to just keep on going. But what on earth happened to Krobler? Looks like he just lost it through the S's, and not having a fun time there, as now Buck is chasing him down as well.
Buck from LNR the Audi from Logistical Nightmare, from LNR, is going to be trying to see if he can, maximize his opportunities here, because Krobler with the dirty tires is going to be feeling the pressure of the Audi as they make their way through Cheetah. Buck going to be ducking out the outside of Ingwe, trying to, throw off the opponents in the mirrors. It's not going to need to matter because Krobler has ducked into the pits, and it's a free position being made up from Buck, Gaba, and Berger, as we see Bego Krobler from Team Wolf going into the pits. Obviously picks up some damage in doing so on his Twitter S's excursion. Stephen?
Definitely not where you want to come off. The S's can bite you incredibly hard, because you can just go and touch it on the inside and it'll throw you to the outside wall faster than you can blink your eye. We jump on board with Abshir, and he is having a ton of fun, still keeping ahead of Walken, but now has to go and make his way around back markers.
I have to ask you, how do you say Jason's surname?
Abschmeyer.
Abschmeyer. I need to, I don't know. I'm asking you because he's memed me for months, right? He sent me voice notes. He said that I've said it wrong. I actually have no idea how to say Jason's surname anymore. And every time I hear someone say it, it sends me off, because now I don't know how to say our race leader's surname properly. I've heard Absmeyer, Absmeyer, with more Afrikaans throats in it at the end, but I can't get my voice to do it. Absmeyer is just how it comes out. And so you know what, Jason, when you rewatch this, if I've done it wrong, then I'm sorry. If Steven's done it right, then we'll hire him again. If he's done it wrong, then we'll have words with him. But I actually don't know how to say it anymore. It's something that I've noticed. You say it more like other people say it, and now I don't know if I'm saying it wrong.
We'll get a voice note clip. We'll put a button, and as soon as he comes into the lead, we'll push the button, and at least he'll have it right there. Jumping aboard, taking a look at Kraling, third place, chasing after Walken, who is 7.3 seconds ahead. Kraling, really out of nowhere, has just been moving up. I'm actually very impressed about this Lambo, because it's been very, very consecutive in times, and has been, the planning just seems has worked out the whole way around. But Patterson is right hot on his heels. And take a look, Herber and Berger duking it out once again. Two Porsches looking to go side by side as they start making their way around the circuit. And Buck is just licking this up. But right behind them, though, interesting enough, is Masters, who's just backing off a little bit, waiting to see what's happening, and will go on the attack when he sees the right time to do so, which is what he actually does back in the real racing. Masters is a planner to sit behind, wait for everyone. When they make a mistake, moves up into first.
No, Masters is in 17th because he binned it and was battling for third, and is most definitely not settling back, waiting to get through here. Stephen, what he would get through this if he could in a moment. If Kaba and Berger left it a moment's door open, Masters is the man to take it through. So I feel like he only sits here because of that massive spin versus waiting to pounce. Hendricks is facing the wrong direction though, and that's the big one for the amp to play driver. He does wait for everybody to get by. Oh, that's the disappointing coming out of Ingwe. I've done that multiple times.
Ingwe is one of those tricky corners that you think that, oh, Rowe also losing it into the entrance of the S's as well. And
no, into the that was the the entrance to Yuxke Sweep.
Oh yes, that's Yuxke Sweep actually.
Yeah. So
Oh
I don't.
my
He obviously clipped maybe a little bit too much curb coming out of Crowthorne and got on the gas a bit early. But again, not a place that you want to be in a situation where you've now only got 30 minutes left to racing. If you're spinning the tires up, this is not the tire set that you're going to be able to change out. Masters, is he going to go on the inside here of Berger? He does. A little bit of touching. It's a little bit of rubbing his racing. Nobody sent off in the background of that at all. But Keegan Masters, I said to you, Stephen, if you leave a tiny gap, he's going to take it from you. Berger did just that. Masters through that was Clubhouse, right? Yeah, through Clubhouse, sends it. And Berger was like, listen, mate, you're squeezing me off. A little bit of contact was made, but the move was still there. Masters gets on through.
It's just giving him a high five for good luck.
You know what? I will accept that. I don't think there was ill intent involved. It was really time to go for it. Berger did look like Masters was alongside coming into Clubhouse. It's such a difficult call to make because of the camera angles that we get. You get the chase cam or the front cam. You're not always looking at it from the other sensors. And Masters here is now getting that move done onto Gaber. Up the inside of Gaber. He's got the run. He doesn't want the slip. He wants the inside line. He wants Gaber to go on the outside of Crowthorne. Masters on the inside now. The pink Porsche wants to slot on in. His teammate Rowe is there in front, needing to be lapped here. Gaber wants to fight back, and contact has been made. Space was not given by Gaber to Masters, who was there and needed to be able to take the inside. Masters maybe closed off Gaber. It's hard to tell, like I said, from these points of views. Our replays are busted with us using custom liveries, but unfortunately, again for Masters, he will slot himself back down the order. Stephen.
Definitely Keegan Masters in that G4 Sim team Porsche, not having a fun time and actually coming off the circuit. I think he's going to retire that car, which is rather unfortunate actually, because he was doing so well, but unfortunately 2 incidents have put him down. But I'm sure Wilkin has the biggest smile on his face as he hasn't got to worry about Masters anymore at any point. Vogel having tons of fun in that Aston and is still chasing after Kruger, who's 4.6 seconds ahead. So can he capitalize on it? Can he move into it? I honestly think that Vogel can move up. If it's going to take a bit of work to get there, and right in front of him is Isherwood. So he has to first break his way around the back marker and then get right up to Kruger. And we jump aboard. Veed having a ton of fun in 11th position. Hugo chasing him behind. But as we said, Hugo is one to watch because he's just been slowly but surely at a steady pace trying to climb up through those ranks. And I've got to say, in one of the heaviest cars in this game. But what do you think of the Bentley as it is? I mean, the Bentley is such a heavy vehicle, but seems to be a really good performer as well.
Do you want my honest opinion?
Well, you're a fan of the Porsches, so go for it.
I think the Bentley is rubbish.
Is it because of the Queen, or is it because it's too heavy for you?
It's not a Porsche.
Okay, fair enough. It's got.
I mean,
got that going against it.
If you're at Kyalami, you're going to be backing a Porsche, and that's exactly what I'm doing at this point. But to be honest, the Bentley is a car that I don't mind. It's a car that I've driven a couple of times. I do find it a bit awkward being thrown onto the other side of the cockpit view when I do drive it, because I do drive in the cockpit view, so it kind of makes me feel like I'm disorientated. A lot of guys drive bonnet cam, and that's not an issue, or they don't mind switching between left and right. It doesn't make an issue to them. But to me, it's something that kind of plays on my mind a little bit. I struggle to adapt to it. So it's Bentley, I would rate in my top 5 cars for sure. Definitely in the top 5. Asaki going to let Mccall go to unlap himself. You see McCall's made his way up to 21st. But yeah, my rating would go Porsche. Then we would go... It's a difficult one for second. I'm probably going to go with the Lexus. I drive the Lexus as my second pick. I don't know why, but that's just where I go to from there. Then probably the Ferrari, as well as the Aston Martin, and then maybe the Bentley in 5th place.
Well, that works. I mean, you've got a big fan of the Porsches, and definitely the Porsches are showing what they can do right around Kyalami at the moment. Versace getting into a little bit of a lull state at the moment, 16.2 seconds away from Vogel, and just trying to follow Mccall his way around. So I think he's just biding his time until the checkered flag comes out at the moment. He's got enough of a gap, 7.98 seconds ahead of King, and is too far back from Vogel at the moment. So I think he's just circulating to just try and get that car to finish. I think that's going to be the best move right now, not to push it and not to try and lose it, especially 25 minutes past 5 in the afternoon on the circuit. And it starts getting a bit tricky, especially coming into sunset. The track itself is also a danger. Sunset's such a legendary corner, and is also one to be very careful of, because when the sun gets in, as it is right there exiting turn 2, it is smack bang in your eyes, and it makes it rather difficult to spot out your brake markers. And the game does a beautiful showing of it, and it just comes down to pure muscle memory. What do you think about it? I mean, Kyalami on ACC through sunset at a time where the sun is coming down. George, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think it's the circuit to take screenshots in. If you haven't taken a screenshot in sunset at Kyalami, you have not lived your life. And it's definitely a circuit that opens itself up to being very picturesque. In terms of the driving of it, you do get caught with a full glare in front of you as you make your way up to Leeuwkop. You need the sun to dip a little bit later down. As you come close to 6 o'clock, you'll see exactly how beautiful sunset does become. I'm not sure that we will get quite to the picturesque moment when the sun sets over there. It's normally at about 6:10. We'll probably finish off at about 5:50 here in game time. So not sure that we'll get there, but the circuit itself is definitely one that I love to just talk about all the time. I have had the privilege. I switched to this Audi on purpose. I went round in an R8 V10 when I was sent to Kyalami for the what was it? It was the Audi Sport Day. I got to go and get a lap there. I went along with my fellow sim racer Alaric Enslin, also known as Ulti. He drives for RPM Omega Esports in a European team based here, but he's based here in South Africa. It was cool to go with him, and we got to experience that kind of experience together. We queued for hours and then got to get driven around. I mean, I didn't drive it; I was just passenger. But that was kind of the glory of it. I don't have any real life racing experience, so I wouldn't want to pilot a car like that around Kyalami. I'd be more cautious than anything, because it's a lot of money, and that's not something that I would want to wreck. So having someone that was allowed to drive it on its limits, absolutely insane experience. And I felt like when I jumped into the sim for the first time, taking Clubhouse and Sunsets and then coming into Clubhouse, I was like, whoa, this really does it really does show just how blind this corner is. I remember them just throwing it in here at 190 and just sending it, and just praying that this car, I could just hear the tires screaming for grip and just holding on for dear life. The G-forces were slinging me into the side of the car. So yeah, for me, Kyalami being in ACC and being able to drive it is just such a cool experience.
No, it's absolutely amazing. Unfortunately, if I had to talk about my favorite GT3 car or any of the GT type cars, it hasn't been racing with any of the European guys, and that has to be the Chevy. So I go and actually play around with the Audi in the game, and I gotta say, absolutely love it. But the Audi is really one of those cars that just sticks like glue. But rejoining into the race, so take a look, Patterson catching right onto the back of Kraling. Now this is going to be a battle for third place, and you can be sure Patterson has now got the bit between his teeth and is really going to chase down against that Lamborghini of Kraling. And this is where it's going to be tricky, because remember, 40 kilos of weight added to his car against Kraling, who hasn't got any weight on, so Kraling has got the advantage in the weight, but it seems like Patterson has really got it knuckled down, He knows what his car can do, knows where he needs to brake, and is making a big effort to go after that Lamborghini. How do you think of this? I mean, it's a beautiful. Let's go back onto your favorite subject, and it has to be a livery on a Porsche, and definitely 70 years all over that. What do you think of it?
Yeah, this is this is for me where someone spent some time trying to get line work lined up onto panels, and it's all things that Kunos would hate to see, I'm sure, in when they look at it, because they didn't intend for us to find a way to put liveries into the game. They did it for their official series and then had to add them in because of the instabilities it caused. But we're trying it out and we're running it, and I love the fact that guys have got the got hold of the files and started to tweak them and make things that are just interesting and unique creations. They submit them through, we run them on the server, and then get to showcase them in the sim, which you wouldn't be able to do if you just had it on your local machine. You rely on the server enabling it. So shout out to RaceFace for doing so. It's a perfect time for me to also plug our RaceFace Enduro coming up. This is, of course, the best time for you guys to go and sign up for it. So all the info for it is over on the RaceFace Discord. I'm not going to spoil things for you. I want you guys to go and experience what it's like to sign yourselves up for an endurance race of proportional scale. I've got more info on it that I'll tweet about. You can follow me on ZA_GMax on Twitter, or you can follow RaceFace.Pro there as well. We've got lots of information coming out soon. The Discord is a hive of information. If you haven't joined the RaceFace Discord, Patterson getting by on Gabba, the back marker, to make his way, of course, towards the back of trailing if he can. 15 minutes of racing remaining. Jason Absmeyer leads us away down the road, let's call it 6.2 seconds behind, 13 seconds down the road is Charles Wilkin in second and Johannes Greiling in third, but soon to be bothered by Kieran Patterson in fourth place. So it is a battle for the top four. Bruno Kadeli, he finds himself in the top five. Brandon Kruger in 6th, Francis Vogel in 7th, Arno Visagi in 8th place, 9th place for Bernard King, and Corne Strauss in that top 10 position. So great bit of driving coming out from the EKZ driver as well. A fellow man that I met at the Kyalami 9-hour in real life. Had never met him before, and kids don't meet strangers on the internet, especially if they're strangers like Corne Strauss. I'm kidding. It was an experience that I loved. I met a whole bunch of racers and drivers, and I can't wait for those things to open up again and we can all meet up again and watch some real life racing. So Strauss doing a good bit of work for his team EKZ in 10th place. I'm getting caught up with my words with 14 minutes to go, Stephen. I'm excited to see what's brewing between 3rd, 4th and 5th, as Kadeli needs to chase down Patterson if he wants to get involved in what Patterson is starting to unravel, because like you said, he's starting to sniff at the back of this Lamborghini.
Definitely nipping at the heels there, and Kennedy is doing everything he can to try and make up that little bit of ground, which he needs to, because the more that Patterson and Trailing duke out between each other, the more they're slowing each other up. No problem. And you can just see Trailing is really trying everything he can. Patterson trying everything he can to just try and catch up. Trailing late on the brakes, 50 beat mark, turning it in, going for that late apex, and is really doing everything possible. Patterson getting into the toe though, getting himself pulled along. You can just see in the background, trying to catch up, trying to eke his way through. But Trailing for that retro sim racing is having a ton of fun on the Lamborghini, but is starting to feel the pressure from Patterson. Patterson going and showing off to the crowd, also live streaming his race from his perspective, and is having a ton of fun while doing that. And you can be sure that he has got his eyes focused on Trailing as much as possible as they come out and heading into the S's. This is where it makes up. Patterson seems to have got dialed in for the S's for his car, but Trailing has just been keeping the momentum. He's trying everything possible to run away from Patterson as they make their way up to Leo Cook heading down the mine shaft. This is where it's all about momentum. It's all about getting that drive out. Patterson taking a more of a wider line to carry the momentum right down the mine shaft as fast as possible. Krayling going and doing everything he can to carry that momentum. Late on the brakes. Is that going to cost him? Going into Crocodile. Goes out a bit wide, but still managing to hold. Patterson going out very wide though as he battles his way around as they head down into Ingwe. You can see Patterson really now starting to feel it. He needs to calm down, take a deep breath. He is diving left and right, and it's coming off a circuit a little bit. He's got the drive out of Ingwe, looking to try and maybe go on the inside line, going into turn 2 against Krayling, and this is where it's going to get a little bit tricky. He has to try and outbrake him, a bit too far to do so, but Krayling having a ton of fun, but has just got his rearview mirror filled with that Porsche.
Oh, absolutely got to make sure that he holds off Patterson to the very last minute. 10 minutes left of racing, and this is where it counts. This is where, if you have been pushing those tires, you might be struggling a little bit. I think we might be able to get some onboards of that beautiful sunset. Oh, look at it. It's coming down. We're right on board with Kieran Patterson, the number 1, 2, 3 Porsche for Patterson Works Racing. He's in 4th place. Like you mentioned, he wants that podium. There's nothing worse than finishing just behind the podium finishers. You always want to win a race, and if you can't settle for that, you at least want to find yourself in the top 3. So right here for Patterson, it's all or nothing, and he wants to find that place onto Krayling. Really, really tough work coming in from these drivers. Let's see down the field if anyone else. My timing sheet does kind of update, but it picks up cars that are lapped and on the edge of losing it. Our closest battle literally is between Krayling and Patterson in terms of closing down the gap. I can't see anybody else. Bego Krobler, is he also battling out with someone at the moment? No, he's out of position according to the timing sheet. So it really is just up to Patterson here to see if he can get anything done. I mean, he's driving around with ballast, Stephen. It's a heavy car. He knows that he's going to be lacking on pace. He needs to nail every single line and try and, lengthen that braking marker point to a point where he can try and slow down later than Krayling, find an ideal spot to try and wrap up this battle and get himself that 3rd spot.
I think at the moment he's trying to get hold of the back markers and try to bribe them to hold back Krayling, because he just seems to be, he's driving on the edge with that Porsche. He's really doing everything. It'll be a massive points boost for him to get into the top 3 and a confidence boost going into the next race, knowing that even with 40 kgs in the car, he can still hold it. But Mansberg moving right out the way for Krayling and Patterson as well. So big thank you to the back markers. Actually, it shows the level of skill here. Not only are our faster drivers, but for the guys having track awareness at the back of the grid that is still able to move out the way, let the guys go, and move their way up. But don't forget, as a battle between Krayling and Patterson go, just ahead of Krayling is Vulcan, who's not too far behind, actually, if you take a look on the timing board there. So Vulcan is probably going to get something in his ear saying, listen, mate, you need to start speeding up rather quickly, because you've got a battle that's going to land up at your front door, and you're not wanting to be part of it. So we might actually see a change-up for 2nd place in the closing stages of this race around Kyalami.
I mean, Krayling is closing down the gap as he makes his way towards the timing line now. We'll get a bit of an update to see where they stand. So 42.6 being done there from, I believe, Wilkin. And then Krayling was then doing what was his last lap that he did? 42.6 as well. So Krayling and Wilkin sort of matching each other's pace. And it's going to be 42.7 from Wilkin and a 42.6 from Krayling. So Krayling finding some extra tenths whilst being under pressure from Patterson, and that may really brew something up. With 8 minutes left to go, this is why we love sim racing. Sparks being kicked up from the back of Wilkin's Porsche as he exits through sunsets, and that's just goes to show the level of these curbs in the Porsches. They're not great friends. You see the car bottoming out like that. And, you know, it's not a situation you want to find yourself, luckily in a stable part of the circuit. But if that catches you unaware and you bottom out, you suddenly lose the back end. And that second place just gets handed into the palms of Johannes Kreiling, who is doing all the work to make sure that if Wilkin does make the mistake, he can get himself up the order. Patterson is trying to do the same thing. He's trying to put pressure onto Kreiling. And Kadili, he's kind of just down into 5th place. He's almost not making up time towards that battle between Patterson and Kreiling, but almost settling down and just wanting to make it to the end of the battle.
No, it's definitely going to be a thing to keep an eye out for. Kadili seems to be quite content lying in that 5th place position, waiting for a problem. Mccall now in the pits.
No, that's sorry. That I just had to just confirm that. But yeah, Junior and Morgan, I believe. I can't really see Morgan at the moment. So Junior's in the pits. Morgan is still out on the circuit. He's made his way up into 18th by just hanging in there. He's on lap 43. Leader's on lap 45. So obviously McCall down the order. Unfortunate for him, but good to see him sticking it out and staying with it. I'm going to go back to our battle between Patterson and Kreiling. It's not yet the battle that needs to evolve because of great work and driving coming out from the Lamborghini of Kreiling, and he's extended the gap here. I think that the backmarker of Hatton was just an ideal place for Kreiling to get on by. He got by, I think, before coming into Crowthorne, and that meant that Patterson had to wait all the way up until Barbecue before getting on by. So now Patterson only has 6 minutes to close on by. Kreiling can still chase down onto Wilkin. The gap there is 3.7 seconds, so Kreiling hasn't found another 10th in the last lap. But, you know, with 6 minutes to go, anything can still happen.
Absolutely. It ain't over till the fat lady sings and the checker flag comes down. And one person to keep an eye on is Cadley, who's being Jaws in the background and is slowly creeping onto the back of Patterson, which is absolutely one to keep an eye for. Abschmeyer, though, working his way through the back markers, having a ton of fun in that 1st place. White Rabbit Gaming, Porsche, beautiful colors set out there, and he's really representing his team. Ishwood moving right out the way, just letting the guys to get round him, doesn't want to get involved in any nonsense whatsoever, and just want to get to the line. But all that Abschmeyer needs to do is just take it easy. He needs to just make sure he gets to that end of the race. Vulcan going out a little bit wide and is really doing everything he can to carry momentum through the corners. Kreiling getting caught up by Rowe a little bit there, losing a bit of time, and now Rowe is the buffer between himself and Patterson. So this is where he wants it to be. He wants to try and make up that little bit of ground. But you can see Patterson is doing everything he can to try and make up any pace, sitting right behind 3rd place. You wouldn't say it's the most aggravating thing to sit behind the podium spots, and I think he's getting quite at this point, knowing with only 4.5 minutes left of this hour and 25-minute race, it's going to be anyone's game.
And Patterson is lifting off, obviously, for the slower Rowe there. Rowe does pull out to the side to allow Patterson to come through the top of Leeuwkop, but it might be a little bit too late for Patterson to close that gap down to Kreiling. 1.4 seconds up the road. That Lamborghini continues its charge. Wilkin 5 seconds from Patterson, but that means that Kreiling has closed the gap down by another 10th to Wilkin, as Kreiling really is trying to push right at the very end to better his podium spot. A little bit of a kickback coming out from Wilkin's exit at Ingwe. That means that his exit is compromised, his speed down the straight a little bit slower. Kreiling is going to be hunting at the moment, and we can just see the pace coming out, and Kreiling, without having to worry with Patterson on his rear end, is definitely benefiting here and finding some nice rhythm in the Lamborghini in the closing stages of this race.
It's going to be a difficult one with 3 minutes and 22 seconds left. We've essentially got a three-way car battle for 2nd place brewing up, and Kreiling, who started a bit further back down the field, has just had things work out for him And you can be sure he has got the biggest smile on his dial right now as he battles his way up through the grid. But Patterson, I've got to say, hats off to Patterson. 40 kgs of weight in a Porsche can't be easy to chuck around, especially around Kyalami.
No, it's been an incredible drive from Patterson. I almost said off screen that it wasn't someone that we're gonna maybe see benefiting as much here in the Porsche because of his extra ballast, but he's really muscled it around. And Johannes Grayling, the big star of the show to me in this third place position. Great to see the Retro Sim guys moving their way up the order and establishing their name in the sports as well. So a good showing here coming out from Grayling, representing his team. And third place at the moment with 2 minutes left on the clock. You see Patterson is closing down again. That gap now just almost under a second, and Patterson will be in the slipstream behind the Lamborghini, and he will need it as he lugs around the ballast on what will be probably the final 2 laps here. Jason will finish off this lap and probably do one more, I believe, so probably our second last lap. So 2 laps for Patterson to get the move done.
Well, this is going to be a rather interesting one, as we saw Wilkin getting caught behind a little bit of a backmarker mess, losing up a bit of time. But you can see Grayling and Patterson have been going and touching the dirt a little bit more. So the pressure is getting to the two of them a little bit there, but they are doing everything they can. I think they've noticed that Wilkin is within reach. So I think a little bit of a taste of we can get there if we really work together. Patterson getting a little bit on the dirt, unsettling the car a little bit before heading into the S's. And let's see if he'll be able to hold it. Isherwood touching the dirt there. Not what he wants. Grayling going and flashing Isherwood, and you can be sure in the Discord channel because he's telling him, listen mate, move out the way. I can't get held up. And definitely Isherwood from Retro Sim Racing going and letting them by. And an absolute battle coming down towards the line. Abschmeyer though, the cleanest race I think he's ever had, and he's doing so well in RaceFace, going literally checkered to just about checkered. And what have you got to say? I mean, it's your favorite car, it is your team around your favorite circuit. The Porsches just seem to have worked out for Abschmeyer around Kyalami.
Yeah, it's you know, it's panned out exactly as I would have loved to see this race go in terms of my team bias to White Rabbit. And of course, Jason here having a phenomenal drive. He is a talented driver. I get to plug him here for a little bit as we go around our final lap. But an absolute stellar asset to the team. He is someone that's helped me out a lot with my sim racing. He donated me his old sim racing rig for me to have, so I didn't have to race on a desk when he got upgraded. So, you know, just a stellar gentleman, and puts a smile on my dial seeing him lead out the race here at Kyalami. He's had a start to finish awesome race so far, and here on the final lap we'll now go around to the top of Leeuwkop for the final time in the number 90 Porsche, to the top of Leeuwkop. And Jason is now going to, you don't want to jinx it at the final bit, but coming down to Mineshaft, Cheetah, and or Crocodile and then Cheetah, it's definitely a sequence of corners that you don't want things to go wrong. But our leader here rounds the back end of Crocodile, makes his way over to the Cheetah corner, survives the Vorsi for the final time, and then we'll throw it down into Engwe. So Jason Abschmeyer through our final corner on our final lap here in round 9 of the RaceFace.Pro Season 2 will take the victory and cross the checkered line. A phenomenal drive coming out from Abschmeyer, and then an equally phenomenal drive coming out from Charles Wilkin from Sarko. Also just puts himself consistently in the right place at the right time. Grayling, what a drive coming out, will take third just off the back of Patterson for 4th place. 5th place will go to Bruno Kedili. 6th place will belong to Francis Vogel if he makes it to the line without Kruger getting something to say. But going through Cheetah, hashtag survived the Vorsi as well. Kruger almost survived the Vorsi, threw it a bit wide, and it's going to be Vogel then going over the line for 6th place. Vogel, a brilliant drive. 6th place for Vogel, 7th place for Kruger, 8th place for Bernard King, potentially, as he's got Strauss on the final lap here. A battle as they go into Crocodile. Strauss not quite in the place to make the move. King needs to hold off Strauss to the line. King in 8th place, 9th place for Cornet Strauss within the top 10. And they come down to Ingwe. Strauss going to have a little look on the outside of Ingwe. All about the run down to the line now. The exit not great from the Audi as King will drive on by to take home 8th place. 9th place will go to Cornet Strauss. Bertus Hugo with a massive 10th place potential finisher. He's got Sean Buck trying to take that off of him. Sean Buck flashes his lights, I believe. Hugo probably got through right before the end. Hugo here will take place or take home a 10th place finish. Was absolutely phenomenal for him. So a great drive coming out from Hugo. And then we see Buck take home 11th place on the timing sheet. Let me just pull up the timetable. So 11th for Buck, 12th for Berger, Hutting in 13th, Gaber in 14th, for Mansberg 15th, Hendricks in 16th. And the server has restarted before the very end. And that means that, Stephen, we have completed our race. How was that for you?
Absolutely amazing. Each of these sim races have put on a fantastic performance that would rival, I think, even the likes of Formula One at this stage. South Africa's top drivers showing exactly what they can do. Bravo to Absmeyer, though, for getting that first place, literally going from pole position to checkered flag, keeping it clean and having a ton of fun there. Wilken really had to work hard in the beginning, but managing to finish up in that 2nd place. And Kraling, out of nowhere, 3rd place for the Retro Sim Racing, and right behind him, Patterson, who had 40 kgs on him, which is even more surprising, still managed to get there and literally fought right until the line. And I gotta say, absolutely phenomenal work. And Kyalami has always been a circuit that's there to impress. And RaceFace has really put on, showing what the pro drivers of South Africa can really do. And absolutely, I'm lost for words. Best races I've seen.
Yeah, it was really something good to see, and I really enjoyed having you here, Stephen. So from my side, thanks so much for joining, guys. Stephen Koenig joining me in the comms box. It was an absolute pleasure. A legend in the real life commentary scene. So it was a privilege for me to have him come out and join me in the virtual box. Stephen, I look forward to more stuff with you. And to all of our viewers, thank you so much for being here. It's been phenomenal. The chat's been lit. You guys have kept us entertained with all kinds of questions. We will see you guys next week. I'm going to end the stream. Stephen, time to say goodbye.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, kids of all ages, thank you. And we'll see you next time right here on RaceFace. Keep an eye out. Subscribe to the channel. See when we come on. Big thank you to the one, the only, the voice of esports, Mr. Smith. And we'll see you next time.
You start